Big win, Don Wilson here for Top MMA News. Here, I'm just elated in this interview, honestly. Bjorn Rebney, Bellator. Great event, first time in Canada. Why don't you give us your thoughts?
Electrifying. A packed house, not an empty seat in the whole place. Just spectacular. I mean, not an empty seat, knowledgeable MMA fans, a great show. They were responding at all the right times to all the right things. A great experience here at Rama. I mean, this place was, I'd never been up here, and my site team had been up here, and they started texting me when they came up the first time, and they were like, this place is spectacular. The rooms are great. The house is going to look like $1 million. The setup of the room. There's not a bad seat in the house. It's like literally the fans are up on top of the action. I mean, and that's what you're looking for from a venue perspective. And it was just, I mean, they know MMA. They're devoted to MMA. They started out first in this province, in this region, in terms of supporting the game. So just a win-win-win, and great fights on the show. So I thought it was great.
Now, one thing I want to touch on, something that we see you do this everywhere you go, is you always bring in a local undercard to really draw on the fans, and then you have the main event, which really draws your TV money. Main event, the undercard this time, lots of great Canadians on that. Alex Ricci gets a win. Will Romero, who you guys have had in before, gets a win. Any chance we'll be seeing either of those guys, in Bellator in the future?
Yeah, I mean, Alex is still very, very, very new. I mean, what's he like, 2-0 or 3-0 now? Yeah, this was his third win. He looked great. I mean, his background story is spectacular. He looked terrific. Will started a losing streak going into our show in the tournament, lost to Patricio Pitbull. We didn't know what we had with Patricio Pitbull when we put him in. I mean, Will was conceivably a favorite in that fight. And wow, I mean, Patricio has just showed himself to be one of the best featherweights in the world since that. So there's no dishonor in losing to Patricio Pitbull. And then a couple more losses, and boom, he comes back with a big win tonight. It was great to see. He's a great kid, and I was just happy to see him get back on the winning track. If we come back here to Canada, I would put either of those guys back on the show just like that. And I would love to be back here in the fall if we can make it work with the guys here at Rama. So, yeah, I mean, both of those guys really impressed tonight. I watched both of the fights. I thought they looked great.
They did. Another Canadian on the card, made the main card, Chris Horodecki, huge fan favorite, great local draw. I'm hearing a 2-fight contract with him, so I'm guessing not in the next 155-pound tournament, as he said in the press conference, but probably will be back when you guys come back October, November. He gets another big win. Is that someone you're looking to sign long-term?
We're blessed right now in terms of being stacked at 155 pounds. If you'd asked me a year and a half ago or so, 55 was very, very weak. Now 55 is super strong. He looked really good tonight. What I loved about watching Chris tonight was that when he stood up at the weigh-in yesterday, he had six-pack abs. He was in spectacular physical condition. It was quite obvious he was super focused and taking this wickedly seriously. So he's a talent. I mean, he's a talent. He's totally recognizable. You see that face, and everybody knows who he is. Everybody who's a fan of the game watched him years ago in the IFL when he was a man against boys. He's 23 years old. He had a couple of bumps in the road in the WEC, but man, he's still super young to this game. So like I said at the press conference, I think his potential is unlimited in terms of what he could do. His stand-up has always been really, really good. And the question is, would his ground game come to a point where it was kind of equalizing and balancing out that spectacular stand-up game? So I think he's a great talent. He was a pleasure to work with, a total pro. I mean, the guy could not have been nicer and cooler to spend time around. So, we'll see. We've got another fight coming up with him later this fall. We'll put him in a good fight, probably try to put it on television as well, and then see where it goes from there.
So it probably gets the win, wants to sign a contract. We'll be seeing him there. Not only did you come to Canada, you signed, with Chris Horodecki, but you also signed Ryan Ford. Big name in Canada, one of our top welterweights. How excited are you to bring him to the organization?
Well, very excited. I mean, there's not a lot of fans in the domestic United States who've seen Ryan Ford, but for those people who've been paying attention up in Canada, and I know he's a big fan favorite up here, wow, he's an exciting fighter to watch. When he's on his feet, you don't blink. So, I mean, I'm very excited to bring him in. Our welterweight division is stacked. I mean, what I'd ultimately like to do strategically is get him a fight in the fall so that American fans could kind of see what Canadian fans already know and are already connected to, and then ultimately put him in the next welterweight tournament and just keep bringing him along. But he's a very exciting fighter, and literally when you kind of craft out the made-for-TV welterweight, he's got that made-for-TV feel.
He's also extremely marketable as well, very, very marketable.
Yeah, well, he has the look and the persona that people are going to be drawn to one way or another. So, yeah, it's a great signing.
Now, one question I'm sure you've been asked a lot lately, but we got to ask it anyway. The Nate Marquardt sweepstakes just came to an end. He signed with Bama. Are you really unhappy you didn't get him, or are you more under the impression that, listen, if you don't want to come fight in the tournament like you're supposed to in our organization, that's what you get?
You know, we had the comfort level in terms of the discussions with Nate was great. I flew him out to Chicago. I sat down with him and his management team. They were total pros. Nate was the consummate gentleman. As I said about a week and a half ago, it just wasn't the right fit. Doesn't mean that a year from now or so it might not be the right fit. You never know. I mean, there's always kind of a state of movement in this sport. It just wasn't right for us, nor was it right for Nate in terms of the way our format works and our structure works. So we'll see. I'm sure he'll do very well over in Bama. I mean, he's a very talented fighter at 85 or conceivably 70 if that's where he decides to go. So, you know, we'll see what happens with Nate. We'll see what happens with him when he gets done with that Bama deal. I don't know how long it is, but, you know, we'll see.
Now, one question, not just on Nate, but on any fighter. Going into negotiations with a fighter that has tested positive once or not only twice for a banned substance, does that sit in the back of your head at all? Do you have to consider that when signing a fighter of really not just Nate, but anyone?
Oh, without question. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, we have, as people who are, you know, right now, there's Zuffa, and they've got their spectacular television platform and an amazing brand name, and they're the 800-pound gorilla. And there's us, in terms of the two major organizations that have large-scale national television and international television distribution platforms. So if we're going to take the sport in the right direction, you got to be hugely cognizant of that. You've got to actually understand, do the due diligence. Nate came to us when we were talking to him, and he said, look, here's what happened. Here's all the paperwork. This is what's going to happen with the commission. This is when it's going to happen. And we basically said, look, we think a lot of you as a fighter, and if that's all true, which you're telling us it is, and we have no reason to doubt it, then we would be very interested in talking to you about a deal. Turns out everything Nate was saying actually ended up bearing fruit. So, but yeah, you go through that whole step-by-step process. You check it out. You want to make absolutely sure, because they're real serious allegations. And if it wasn't what Nate had said it was, it's a huge breach of the trust of fans. It's a huge breach of a fairness doctrine that has to exist in our sport. So, yeah.
Now, you know, just moving on to something else. It's something that you guys have done very, very well at Bellator, and I don't think any organization has done it as well as you. You bring in stars from other countries. Your immigration lawyers are just amazing. You know, you've made the Pitbull Friers. You know what I mean? You've brought in some great stars from Europe as well. One guy that it seems to be having quite the immigration trouble, but would be a great add to your organization, Glover Texera. Have you guys had any contact or talks with him?
Sam Kaplan, who's our VP of Talent Development, has brought him up to me probably 2 or 3 dozen times. You know what I mean? Yeah. So absolutely on the radar. Hasn't been able to make the jump over as of yet. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. We've done, the team has done an amazing job. I think it stems back from really what the format's all about.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter how you look. It doesn't matter what language you speak. All that matters is, can you fight at an elite world-class level? So that's what's given rise to the kind of immigration from Brazil and from Eastern Europe and Western Europe and all over the world that we've been able to do, because it doesn't, you know, none of the rest of it has anything to do with what we're about as an organization. So yeah, I mean, he's a very, very talented fighter, very talented fighter.
You know, last question here. You guys are you've said this many times, you guys don't matchmake. The tournaments matchmake for you. As a promoter, and I gotta say, you're one of the best. You're extremely well spoken. You're always excited when things go on. How is it that you know, to control an organization when you can't control the favorite in the fight? You can't control who's going to sell the tickets. You can't control who would, you know, sell the show. How rough is that?
You know, I mean, it's a great question, but man, I look at that conundrum as an enormous positive. I look at it like real sport. I look at it like I look at the World Cup or the US Open or the NHL playoffs. It's, look, sometimes if you're an NFL fan in North America, you're going to get the Giants that are going to be the best team and they're going to win, and they're from the biggest media market and everybody's going to be wildly excited. And other years the Indianapolis Colts are going to win, and they're from a little teeny media market, and the guys in the NFL offices, the guys at NFL properties are going to be pulling what's left of their hair out going, wow, Indy, that's tiny. But it is what it is, and it's the purity of sports competition. So I mean, I kind of wear that as a badge of honor. I've always believed, and there's no disrespect intended to anybody else in fighting sports promotion, but I've always believed that it was just inherently unfair for a guy in a suit like mine to sit behind a desk with a little bit of a stomach and to decide who fights who for what and when.
Makes sense, yeah.
I just always felt like, gosh, you know, they don't do that in American football. They don't do that in soccer. They don't do it in golf or tennis or hockey or basketball. the group of athletes or a group of teams play, and at the end of a season, there's one left. And that one is there because he or she beat all the rest of them. It's like the simplest concept that from when we were kids playing in soccer tournaments or hockey tournaments. It always works the same way. It goes like this. So I could never conceptualize, if I ever got the chance and the money and the investment and the people and the organization and the infrastructure to do it myself, I could never envision doing it any other way than this. It never occurred to me that I would hire great matchmakers and we would try to develop guys, putting them in against the right kind of music, and we would all sit back and go, we can sell that. That'll be saleable, that'll do numbers for us, let's put that fight together. It's just counterintuitive. It seems to me, again, with all due respect, it seems to me to be theatrical in nature.
No, I agree.
We're going to choose how this works, as opposed to, these guys are wickedly talented. Let's put them in a group of 8. Yep. Let's give them 3 fights, and at the end of it, there will be one.
And it doesn't matter who that is.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I mean, look, this is spectacular for us right now. We got Marlon Sandro, who's one of the most respected, talented featherweights on the face of the earth, in against Pat Curran, who is just an unbelievable talent. And I got to say, as a fan, I take my CEO hat off. I think the winner of that fight could make a very, very strong objective claim to being the number 2 featherweight on the face of the earth.
You definitely could, considering Marlon Sanders already right there, just outside probably the top 3, so definitely. Now, speaking of that fight, that's going to be the Summer Series final. We're going to be seeing that in the Mohegan Sun on what date?
August 20th.
August 20th. Any other fights to announce for that card?
Yeah, we're going to have Rico Rodriguez riding a 12-fight win streak, coming in against Seth, the Kimbo Killer. And then we're going to have our champion Cole Conrad's going to go in against Paul, the headhunter Biontello. So, you talk about a clash of styles.
Striker versus grappler.
Paul wants to stand up and punch you in the head, and Cole wants to throw you on the ground. So, those should be 2 very interesting fights at heavy, with some cool ramifications in terms of Rico's fight in the upcoming heavyweight tournament, etc. So, and we'll get to see Cole go again. But man, this featherweight final is just, from my perspective, I can't wait to sit cage side for that.
It's also unbelievable that they've been able to do a fight every 30 days in that kind of high caliber competition. Well, once again, big win, Don Wilson, Bellator CEO and President, Bjorn Rebney, Top MMA News.